Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about an in-depth air pollution study of the Phoenix area. We'll also look at efforts to help reintegrate returning veterans into society. And we'll see how former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor is helping increase voter turnout. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. An ASU professor recently completed an in-depth analysis of air pollution in the Phoenix area. The study looked specifically at the size and number of particulates in the valley's air. Here to talk about his report is ASU professor Tom Cahill. It's good to have you here.
Good evening.
This is always interesting with air pollution, but let's start by defining air pollution.
Well, nowadays people actually like to use the term air quality. The reason being is not all the particulate matter in the atmosphere is man-made. Dust, spores, pollen, they're all natural. So people like to refer to it as air quality to incorporate both the natural and the man-made. But basically, air pollution can be divided into two categories. One are gases, like ozone, carbon monoxide, or NOx. The other is particulate matter. Particulate matter is basically the solid material in the atmosphere. Dust, soot, pollen, spores, etc.
So what do we know of particulates and particulate pollution?
Well, most often people measure just particulate matter. If you watch the evening news and you'll see the forecast of health warning, in winter it's often due to particulates. Particulates basically come from many sources. They can come from vehicles, they can come from wood-fired power plant, or from fireplaces, from power plants. They can also be natural, they can be dust, they can be pollen, they can be spores.
And again, your study kind of looked at the size of these particulates, and there is a difference because those bigger ones may seem worse, but they're not worse, are they?
Well, the bigger ones actually tend to be more innocuous in terms of chemistry. They tend to be large, coarse particles. They're going to be dust, they're going to be pollen, they're going to be spores. Most of these are natural. We don't have to worry too much about them. It's the smaller particles which actually have the more toxic origins, mostly combustion. That's vehicle, welding, fireplace.
And more toxic because what? They get into the bloodstream and these sorts of things?
More toxic for two reasons. One, your nose and upper bronchial tracts have mechanisms to screen out big particles. They're defenses against it. The smaller particles can escape those defense mechanisms. Hence, they can get deeper into the lung, and your body does not have as many defense mechanisms deep in your lung. After all, the whole idea of the lung is to get efficient exchange of gases across into the bloodstream. So the smaller particles can more easily get absorbed by the body and then circulated within the body.
So it sounds to me like you see the haboob out there and you see these massive dust storms and you think, oh, there's bad stuff's coming back. But much of that is larger particulate as opposed to maybe the stuff you don't see with exhaust.
Well, the larger particulates from the haboobs are basically dirt. It's basically dust being blown around. The advantage of the dust, even though it's impressive and always makes national news, is that it settles quickly. You may have really bad air quality for a couple hours, and then it settles down. So actually, in terms of the long-term average, those storms are impressive, but don't contribute much to the long-term particulate load. What's more worrisome is the wintertime aerosols. One, they last in the atmosphere for days or weeks, and two, they are the ones that get into your lung more readily. The big dust, it gets screened out more readily by your nose.
And then when you say days or weeks, you're talking those inversions we see every winter.
Exactly. The problem with the inversion is it traps all the air pollution we generate near ground level. By having a smaller volume of air, we put the same pollution into it, it stagnates. And it means it just sits there and builds up. In the summer, we have the sun warming the ground, the air lofts and takes the pollution with it. Therefore, the pollution is swept out very efficiently in the summer, whereas in the winter, it's trapped in us, or trapped at ground level with us.
With us, yeah, and we wind up breathing it in. Your study in general, tell us what you were looking for, and what you found.
What we were looking for was the following. Most people that measure particulate matter simply measure one value. It's the amount of mass in the air at a particular time. They don't bother to differentiate it based on size, other than a standard cut point like PM 2.5, which is 2.5 micron particles and smaller. And they don't do the chemistry on it. There's only really one site in all Phoenix that EPA runs called the super site that does any chemical speciation, i.e. looks at what the particulate matter is made of. And the reason being is it's important to know what the particulate matter is made of. Don't tell me a gram of sand and dust is as toxic as a gram of diesel soot. The diesel soot's much more toxic. So you really need to look at what the particulate matter is made of in addition to its size in order to understand how hazardous it actually is. So what we did is focus on learning both the composition and the size fractions of the aerosols present. So we did chemical speciation for each of 9 size fractions, from the very coarse dust stages down to the very fine and ultra fine stages. And that way we can separate the biological dust and pollen and spore mass, which is effectively harmless, away from the much more toxic soot.
And when you did that separation, were there any surprises out there? First of all, where did you do, where were the locations for these things?
Well, for simplicity, we set up on the ASU West Campus at Thunderbird and about 43rd. And so we're in a pretty representative suburban area in Phoenix. We're not downtown, we're not out in the very fringe. So we're really a good representative air quality sample. And so what we found basically is what you'd expect, that the wintertime aerosols tend to be smaller and tend to be combustion related. Now everyone loves to blame wood smoke. In fact, we have no burn days specifically designed to limit emissions. The only problem is the inversion traps all pollutants. So we have tracers that show us wood smoke is highest in the winter, but also vehicle exhaust is highest in the winter. But wait a second, vehicles source strength is not changing. The same number of cars is roughly on the road in winter and summer. That's the effect of the inversion.
But now, but it still makes sense, do you think, to have these non-burning days for wood? I mean, yes, they're different, but they're all getting trapped. You want less trapped, don't you?
The no burn days are a good idea, but they're not necessarily the only solution out there. We need to slowly work on the additional sources that are starting to be called the off-road sources. Things like lawn equipment, barbecues, etc., that may also add additional pollution to the atmosphere. But yes, no burn days are a good idea. The only problem there is enforcement.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so anything surprise you? Anything that you, when the study was done, this is a very comprehensive and in-depth study. Anything you went, well, I didn't know, I didn't expect that.
The main thing is how little of an effect the haboob had. I expected that there'd be a lot of soil contaminants, basically microbes, spores, detritus, and they'd have a very strong organic signature. So there are a bunch of fatty acids and biological materials, a bunch of sugars, the building blocks of life. I expected them to be much higher. In retrospect, it makes sense because there isn't that much organic material in soil to begin with in the desert. Desert soils are very low in organic material. So I expected a lot more, but really was not a factor.
So last question here. What do we take from the study? What should we do with the information that you studied?
Well, let me take your question and rephrase it. What can you do about air quality? Basically, the single best suggestion I have for you is get a good filter for your air conditioning heating system. And the reason being is they can filter out a lot of the fine particulate matter. In particular, they can get rid of the fine particulate matter that can enter your homes. Now, everyone thinks of the haboobs, you go indoors and you're protected from them. Yes, those are coarse aerosols and they're short-lived. But in winter, you have fine aerosols over a long period of time, and hence those aerosols do get indoors. And once again, how much time do you spend outdoors? We spend most of our life indoors, whether it's home or work. So by cleaning up the air where we're actually breathing it makes the most sense.
And last, very quickly, for those of us who like to jog in the mornings, do exercise outside in the mornings, should you wait a while in the winter, maybe get past that morning and get to where the sun burns some of that off, or what?
The sun doesn't really burn it off, it may lift it.
Lift it, okay.
What happens is when the sun warms the ground, the warm air starts to rise and will lift the inversion. I'm not sure how much of a difference it would actually make. You might have to wait a few hours, in which case it may cut into work schedules.
There you go, an inversion is an inversion is an inversion. Very interesting stuff. Thanks for joining us, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Drive a few miles north of Strawberry on Highway 87, nearly 20 miles on rugged forest roads along the edge and into the deep woods atop the Mogollon Rim, then scamper 500 feet down the southern edge of a rocky canyon, and you'll come upon a monument to the Battle of Big Dry Wash. The site looks much as it did on July 17, 1882, when a party of over 50 Apaches under Nattiatish waited to ambush cavalry led by Captain Adna R. Chaffee. The troops were guided by legendary scout Al Sieber, who discovered the Apache's trap and warned the soldiers. The Apache had no idea that they were now surrounded, outnumbered, and they had lost the element of surprise. Nearly half the Apache were killed, including Nattiatish. Only 2 troopers died in the melee. The names of the cavalry that took part in the fight are listed on the back of the rarely visited massive stone monument, including Lieutenant Thomas Cruz, who won the Medal of Honor. The Battle of Big Dry Wash was the last battle fought between the Apaches and Army regulars.
Tonight at 7, we here on 8 are broadcasting an Ask an Expert show that allows for viewers to call in and ask an expert on the challenges faced by returning veterans and their families. Joining us now is Don DeMars, a counselor employed by the Veterans Administration to provide clinical services to veterans and their families. Thank you so much for being here. And again, we want to remind folks that later on this evening at 7 o'clock, they'll be able to call in and ask a bunch of folks like you personal questions, specific questions, and these sorts of things. It's a good program, and it's something that we're very proud of. But kind of as a hint, a teaser for the show tonight, we've got you here. The Vet Center program, what is that?
It's a service that came about in reaction to the Vietnam War and specifically veterans' frustration with VAs. It has its own budget that's authorized by Congress, and it's mandated to provide services, clinical services, to veterans and families who have been deployed to a war zone. The myriad of services that are offered range from individual, marriage, family, group psychotherapy, and we attempt to work hand in hand with the VA, particularly mental health providers that are prescribing medications to combat veterans.
As far as the challenges facing veterans reintegrating into society, you mentioned that the Vet Center there were problems in the past. Are those problems the same after all these years?
I think they're probably more intensified because of the number of deployments that veterans have gone through. If you remember a deployment to Vietnam, if you were a United States Army infantryman, spanned 12 months, a Marine, it spanned 13 months. Our veterans that are returning from war today have been deployed 3, 4, 5 times. And the war changes each and every deployment.
So with that in mind, common signs of trauma-related symptoms?
Well, the symptom complexes of PTSD, of course, are re-experiencing, where they will encounter intrusive images, thoughts, memories, nightmares, flashbacks of the event. Hyperarousal, where the person will experience a flood of energy as a result of the activation of the sympathetic nervous system that galvanizes them to fight, flight, or freeze. Typically, they will develop efforts to cope with the symptoms by way of avoidance. For example, avoiding large crowds, avoiding walking at streets at night, avoiding interacting over the telephone with people that may be calling, etc. And then numbing. Numbing may occur through working compulsively, alcohol, drugs. Many of them are coming back, however, numb anyway, as a result of having been exposed to constant death.
And as far as the families are concerned, I mean, obviously the families are not being exposed to constant death. No. They can try as hard as they can. They just don't have that experience. How do they know it's time to see someone, it's time to... How do you go from someone who's being moody to someone who needs some help?
Well, if I can demonstrate, if you allow my slinky to represent the individual, the human organism, and his expenditure of energy, this would be considered normal functioning.
Okay.
Then if the person engages in exercise, this would be the normal state of expenditure of energy. If the person's traumatized, you find this. The veteran returns and suppresses that energy, holding it within. The family, going about its daily business, is seeking to have access, emotional connection with him. And on occasion when they do this, the energy explodes in the form of rage or anger. Any evidence of that obviously is a telltale sign that the veteran is wounded and needs services.
And those services, what is out there? What's most commonly seen out there?
Well, if you take the vet center experience, we're seeing veterans coming in with multiple deployments who are having a difficulty adjusting to civilian life because they feel so alienated.
Okay.
Their survival system was their fellow battle buddies back in the war zone, and they've left that survival system and feel very, very vulnerable. Their families are making expectations for them to return, to share the burden of labor in the household, to meet their spouse's needs, and they're just not available. And for the family, it's necessary for them to accept that for a period of time and help to mobilize the veteran towards seeking help, either at the vet centers for individual, group, family, marital, what have you.
And a lot of occasions, the family needs some
Yes.
help too. They
Yes.
got to figure this out too.
Absolutely. The family will typically mobilize its resources to try to contain and mollify the symptoms of the symptom bearer, and subsequently their individual needs are not being met. And so they'll come in oftentimes more emotionally distressed than the veteran himself. And when you take the instance of children, children are solely dependent on their parents for just about everything. So if the veteran reacts and a relationship rupture ensues, the child will accept responsibility for that. This is my fault. Now you project that over several decades, you can see the deleterious effect it would have on the youngster's self-esteem, his self-concept.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about a healthy readjustment. What contributes to getting that reintegration on a healthy basis?
Both the veteran and the spouse have to step up. The veteran has to acknowledge and seek the appropriate treatment as a result of his exposure to death. The spouse likewise needs to seek treatment because during that interval of time that the veteran is attempting to recover from his trauma, she needs to take care of herself. And so at our vet center, for example, we have a spousal group led by Christine Johnson Closhy, and they use that support group to learn about PTSD, to learn strategies to help cope with the trauma within the household, etc.
You mentioned acknowledgement on the side of the family and of the veteran. How difficult is that?
For the veteran, it has a lot to do with acknowledging he's weak or vulnerable, should be able to cope. It's not as nearly as difficult for the wife, but what is common to both wife, children, and husband is this tendency to try to close ranks and keep that information from the outside world for fear of being judged.
Yeah, all right. So the message that veterans and families need to hear, again, we have the Ask an Expert show tonight here on Channel 8 at 7 o'clock. But before we get there, and just from our conversation, folks watching right now, they're thinking, that sounds like so-and-so, that sounds like the family down the street, that sounds like my family. What do they need to hear? What do they need to know?
They need to know that it's really important to do whatever is necessary to help that veteran acquire the assistance that he needs. I also think it's very, very important, if I can quote the Dalai Lama, that if they really wish to make the veteran happy, they need to practice compassion. If they wish to make themselves happy, they need to practice compassion. Compassion is the key to overcome the veteran's resistance to seeking treatment.
And you've been doing this a long time. Have you seen that concept of compassion emphasized more now than it may have been in the past?
It should be. In my practice, it is.
Yeah. Because in the old days, there was a tough it out kind of a syndrome going, wasn't there?
Yes, sir.
Is that still around a little bit?
In the veterans' ranks, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
John Wayne has revisited another generation. I guess now it would be Clint Eastwood.
Well, it's very good information. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And again, that Ask an Expert show, people like you will be standing by on the phones for more particular and more specific calls as we run that program later tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, sir.
Tonight's edition of Arizona's Future looks at civic engagement. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor has served our country her entire life, but as producer Shauna Fisher reports, Justice O'Connor is now calling on others to do their civic duty.
Arizona is a great state. I love it. I grew up in a remote area on the east side of the state and on a ranch that was very remote. On election day there, we had to drive over 30 miles to get to the nearest polling place where we could vote.
It's an experience that Justice Sandra Day O'Connor has never forgotten, and one that would carry her to the highest court in the land as the first female U.S. Supreme Court justice. In 2009, 3 years after retiring from the court, the justice started O'Connor House. Sarah Suggs is its CEO.
O'Connor House is a nonprofit organization that was founded by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor to help solve important social, economic, and political problems through civil dialogue and civic action.
Under the watchful eye of the justice, O'Connor House tackles 4 key issues, among them civic responsibility.
We talk about the term civic engagement, and I think what we're meaning when we talk about that is the notion that every one of us as citizens in our community needs to feel they're a part of it, and that they will vote when there are things to vote on, and that they'll discuss things with fellow citizens where citizens' opinions matter.
And where those opinions matter the most, Suggs says, is in the voting booth. In 2012, after learning about the dismal voter turnout in Arizona, O'Connor House launched the Great Voter Challenge.
We ranked 45th in the nation, which is really a very disappointing number, particularly that it was a presidential election year, which normally has a higher turnout than average. So in discussing this with Justice O'Connor, we realized that this is just simply not acceptable, and we have to do something about it. So the Great Voter Challenge was such that we, issued the challenge to all Arizonans, eligible citizens, to register to vote, become informed, and vote.
As we head into the election cycle this year, Suggs says the numbers are on the upswing. But she is quick to add there is more work to do when it comes to getting people to the polls.
Apathy and some frustration with citizens, disgust in some cases in its current state of affairs, and sometimes people just want to throw their hands up and they give up, and they can't, because only the votes of the people are going to change the course of action, change leadership if necessary at any given level, and make a difference. So not voting is really, through an act of omission, letting the collective greater good down.
Justice O'Connor is hopeful for Arizona's future when it comes to civic responsibility. Strong words from a woman who made some of the biggest decisions for our country, but who believes the greatest decisions are made by the people.
It matters to me, and it should matter to all of us. We get to pick our leaders at the local level, the town council. We get to pick our county officials. We get to pick our state legislators and our governor, the state officials, and we're so lucky as citizens to get to do that. And so our job, I think, as adults is to encourage all our neighbors and friends to vote, to encourage everyone to vote when they have the opportunity, so that it's a collective decision we all make when we select our leaders.
Arizona's primary election is August 26th. Early voting is already underway. For more information on the O'Connor House, visit o'connorhouse.org. Wednesday on Arizona Horizon, we'll hear why ASU was chosen to design and operate a camera system for NASA's Mars 2020 mission. That and more, 5:30 and 10 on the next Arizona Horizon. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.